Hello guys, welcome back to my YouTube channel. Today I will be going to discuss about the different types of history. First, I will be going to discuss about the Act of Declaration of Philippine Independence. This Act of Declaration of Philippine Independence by Ambrosio Ryanzares Bautista became a basis for a president generation to discover when and how the Philippines was liberated. It provided the information leading us deeper understanding as to how the Philippines was freed from the horror brought by the Spanish colonization. It is not only contained the declaration of our independence alone, but also provide background information on how things came upon and also the suffering of the Filipinos, of our recognized heroes, and most especially the illustrious on the hands of the Spaniards. Reading this account made me even more grateful that we have our heroes who are willing to sacrifice their lives just to free their people from suffering. It also allowed me to know the root of our liberty that we are enjoying today. After knowing our history, gradually I am starting to feel like a real Filipino who appreciates her heroes and history. I had acquired knowledge and realization. I am really grateful for having this course in our curriculum. I do feel like most of us were not well aware of our own history. So suffering this course in college is really a huge help us to recall the roots of what we have today. Though it is tiring to read some of this passage, something urged me to continue. I have known as to what really happened during the 12th of June. Overall, I learned a lot, though it was quite challenging at the research part. Next, we will proceed to another topic, which is the 1899 Constitution of the Republic of the Philippines, Malolos Convention. On January 21, 1899, Aguinaldo promulgated what is now known as the Malolos Constitution. The Malolos Constitution is the first important Filipino document ever produced by people's representatives. It is anchored in democratic tradition that ultimately had their roots in American soil. It created a Filipino state host government, was popular representative, and responsible with three distinct branches: the executive, legislative, and the judicial. The Constitution is specifically provided for a safeguard against abuses and enumerated the national and individual rights, not only the Filipinos and of the alliance. The legislative power were exercised by the Assembly of Representatives, composed of delegates elected according to law. To make the function of Congress continuous, the document provided for a permanent commission which would sit as a law-making body when Congress was not in session. The Assembly elected the President of the Republic. The Cabinet, composed of the secretaries of the different departments of the government, was responsible not to President but to the Assembly. The administration of the justice was vested in the Supreme Court and inferior courts to be established according to law. The Chief Justice of the Supreme Court was to be elected by the Assembly with the concurrence of the President and the Cabinet. The Constitution as a whole is a monument to the capacity of the Filipinos to chart their own course along democratic lines. In a period of storm and stress, it symbolized the ideals of people who had emerged from the dark age into the light of reason. Next, we're going to discuss about the Treaty of Peace between United States of America and Kingdom of Spain, Treaty of Paris. The Treaty of Paris in 1998 formally ended the Spanish War. In 1998, the United States declared war on Spain throughout the 1890s. Many Americans objected to Spain's treatment of the people of Cuba. Revolutionaries had attempted to overthrow Spanish authority. The Spanish government in Cuba first suspected revolutionaries into prison camps, among other tactics. Some American reports the Yellow Press printed sensational stories regarding Spanish atrocity in Cuba. Many Americans firmly believed that the United States, the bastion of representative government, could not permit the Spain continued subjugation of the Cuban people. Tension between the United States and Cuba came to a boiling point in February 1898. President William McKinley had dispatched a United States battleship demand Cuba, purportedly to protect American citizens in Cuba in case a war erupted between the Spanish and Cubans. In February 1898, the main exploded, killing 260 American servicemen. The American people were convinced that the Spanish were responsible, although there was no clear evidence to prove the accusation. Most historians now believe that an accident occurred on board of the ship. Somehow gunpowder, Moses Scholar contended, ignite in the gunpowder room, causing the explosion. McKinley sent a declaration of war to the United States Congress, which approved the declaration on April 25, 1898. The Spanish-American War lasted less than 3 months and ended in a complete victory for the United States. The Treaty of Paris 1898 officially ended the conflict. The United States acquired Guam, Puerto Rico, and the Philippines as territories. Cuba technically gained its independence, but United States soldiers remained in the country of years, commonly intervening in the new nation's politics. While some Americans opposed expansion, the East United States victory in the Spanish-American War and the acquisition of territory from Spain in the Treaty of Paris assured President McKinley his re-election in the election of 90s. Next, Jose Rizal retraction controversy. We all know that Jose Rizal is our national hero because of the novels he had written during the Spanish period. This courageous act of rebellion against the colonizers, and he has been the symbol of our country freedom. But at the last moment of his life, he retracted everything he had ever said and written because he declared himself as a Catholic, and this has been the greatest controversy which is talk about Rizal. People are still debating nowadays because they wanted to know the truth regarding about his controversy, if Jose Rizal really retracted. As I understand it, he was forced to make the retraction by the Spanish, but the truth is lost in time. The debates of his retraction still seems to be an issue with some Filipino. So what if he retracted? He would have had reason to do so. Maybe he was threatened with the mass execution of innocent Filipino, which to me would be something the Spanish would have done back in those times. We must remember the genocide the Spanish for centuries committed against indigenous people of the island of the lands conquered. They not have hesitated in murdering hundreds of Filipino to have Rizal sign the retraction. Next, the convention between the United States of America and Great Britain delimiting the boundary between the Philippine archipelago and the state of North Borneo in 1930. The convention between the United States and Great Britain 1930 was an agreement between the government of the United Kingdom and the United States to definitely delimit the boundary between North Borneo, then a British protectorate, and the Philippine archipelago, then a U.S. territory. All islands to the north and east of the seed line, and all island and rock traversed by the seed line, should there be any such, shall belong to the Philippines, and all islands to the south and west of the seed line shall belong to the state of Borneo. North Borneo, on the other hand, in consequence of the establishment of the line fixed by the preceding articles of the present convention. In the event of either high contracting party ceding, selling, or transferring any of the island in question to third party provision, shall be made for the continued application to such island of the aforementioned Article 19 of the treaty between the United States of America, the British Empire, France, Italy, and Japan, limiting naval armament signed at Washington on February 6, 1922, provide that treaty is still in force at the time of cession sale, lease, or transfer. The convention was signed in Washington on January 2, 1930 by U.S. Secretary of the State Henry L. Stimson and British Ambassador to the United States Esme Howard. It was ratified by the United States in February 1930, and after clarification by the exchanges of notes between the two governments in 1930 and 1932 by the Kingdom in November 1932, and it entered into force after an exchange of ratification on December 13, 1932. Next, Emilio Aguinaldo Proclamation of the Surrender to the United States on April 19, 1901. One of the interesting topic that I was choosing in topic 5, which was Emilio Aguinaldo's Proclamation of the Surrender to the United States on April 19, 1901. Emilio Aguinaldo issued a proclamation that broke the heart of thousands of revolutionaries nationwide. The complete termination of hostilities and a lasting peace, he said, are not only desirable but absolutely essential to the welfare of the Philippines. It was proclamation of surrender in the Philippine-American War. Aguinaldo did not write a long speech. He simply said that accepting American sovereignty was him heed the voice of a people longing for peace, and that he was serving his beloved country. As I realized about this situation, maybe I could not see that Emilio Aguinaldo is a brave man who fight American soldiers for the peace of our country. When I read those lessons, I was thinking and I realized that myself I would be a brave and strong always, like despite of all my struggles in life. I would say I can do it and I could be. For me, this topic has great impact even in this present time, where I could be the same as yesterday. I feel like I'm hopeless, but I will try my best to fight all the struggles and war in my life like President Emilio Aguinaldo. And lastly, it is very important to know the history, where we can recall those past events, and after all, we can gain some realization in the past that make changes in the present generation. Next, Treaty of Paris. Treaty of Paris, 1898, treaty concluding the Spanish-American War. It was signed by representatives of Spain and United States in Paris on December 10, 1898. By the time that conference opened on October 1, U.S. President William McKinley had finally decided that the United States must take possession of the Philippines. The demand was ultimately accepted with a great reluctance by Spain, with a stipulation that the United States should be Spain $20 million nominally for public buildings and public works in the Philippines. For me, Treaty of Paris has a negative and positive impact to the Filipinos, which is those days. American has been paid to Spain for them to take over the Philippines. For me, this situation was become too hard to solve, and I think it would be underestimate our own country. If I would relate it to myself, I could see that there are people who lied on me. They have many promises, but all of those would be broken. I remember that those times of American period were bad side and there is also a good side. But despite all of those struggles and challenges, the Philippines are always then the best. Next, Commonwealth of the Philippines. The 1935 Constitution, which featured a political system virtually identical to the American one, became operative. The system called for a president to be elected at large for a 4 years term, a bicameral Congress, and an independent judiciary. During this period, President Manuel Quezon was elected as the first president of the Commonwealth. It is the preparation for complete independence of the Philippines. Filipinos were given a chance to and the power to manage their domestic affair under the American supervision. It also tackled the economic and social problem during those period. For me, my realization about this topic, which was about the Commonwealth of the Philippines, was very exciting to discuss and important to remember because this constitution was very historical, and this is the guide to have a complete peace, order, and democracy. I see myself that I would obey this constitution so that there is a peace in our country and even in our society. I feel lucky because I am now in peace country where I could express my freedom and a right to choose because uh, because of this constitution. Next, Bataan has fallen. On April 9, 1942, officials in command of Bataan, where Filipino and American forces maintained the main residence in the war against the Japanese, formally surrendered. Through the Voice of Freedom radio broadcast, 3rd Lieutenant Normando Ildefonso Reyes, reading a message prepared by Captain Salvador P. Lopez, informed the Philippines and the world from Malinta Tunnel and Corregidor. For the whispered words, Bataan has fallen, which was beamed by a freedom radio station that fateful day, merely signaled the start of a struggle that was to rank the Filipinos among the world's most intense and courageous freedom fighters. During the World War II, some Filipino soldier has been marched to the Bataan without food to eat and water to drink. They suffer and some of them was died. For me, those situation was very hard, and if I would relate it to myself, it is very sad. But I need to be strong always to fight all those challenges and suffering. In the end, we will grow and learn for the betterment of ourselves and our country. Therefore, my overall insight to realization that we need to give value to those people that surround us. We need to respect them and give a reward.